Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about the overall political situation in terms of, we've seen the Shahbaz Gill situation, we've seen what the PTI is talking about, we've seen what the PMLN is saying, whatever the prerogative of what the powers of police in terms of the Punjab police and the federal police. We'll be talking about the overall ramifications of this incident. We've also seen Imran Khan Sahab now say that they will be holding, the PTI will be holding a rally for Shahbaz Gill tomorrow. The ramification of this on the overall political scene. We'll also be talking about the foreign funding case and the Tosha Khana case and where things stand as far as the legal side of things are concerned, and of course the effect of this on the politics of PTI at this time. In terms of, we've seen the PMLN and the Minister for Information talk about the journalists and the rights of journalists, the independence of journalists during the past tenure versus what's happening at this time. There's been a debate now for a while in terms of independence of freedom of speech versus the state trying to curtail any freedom of speech. We've had there's criticism on PTI also. Overall, the polarization in our political scene at this time and what it means. We'll be talking about all of that today. I have with me Barrister Safiullah Khoury, who's a legal expert. Thank you for joining us. We also have with us Amir Hussain, who's a columnist. Thank you for being with us. Ali Asjad Mali, who's a leader PTI. Thank you for being with us. And Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh, who is with the PMLN. Thank you for being with us. Safiullah, as far as the overall situation is concerned, certainly, the Shahbaz Gill situation now, like we were earlier talking about, is something that we are all looking at, and it's all over every TV screen at this time. In terms of the debate, of course, is one party saying it's victimization, the other party saying that it is the law taking its course. And this was a statement that was made on TV in front of everyone. There's little doubt about what was said. There's a recording of that. And then, the law taking its course pursuant to that. How do you look at it overall? We also saw, like I earlier mentioned, the federal police and the Punjab police and what happened there. Him coming out of PIMS, the optics of all of it. How do you look at the situation?
Of course, there's been a lot of, it's been very dramatic, so to put it mildly. And the fiasco between Punjab police and Islamabad police was deplorable to say the least. We cannot expect something of the sort to happen in a country which claims to have any rule of law. There's a court order. It should have just been followed. I don't understand why there was a standoff between two different police authorities. These things are almost unheard of anywhere else in the world, and also for Pakistan's history, we don't really see these things. As far as the entire Shahbaz Gill fiasco is concerned, MAHRUKH, I would shy away from making any particular statements because this is a very sensitive issue. Now, I don't think anyone in their right minds would ever agree with the idea of torturing someone. Torture in any form is bad, and especially of a political prisoner, somebody who has.
But what is the legality of it? Let's talk about that.
Torture is obviously prohibited.
I mean that in terms of him being under custody, of course he's being presented in court. He's also, the remand is also legal. So I mean, there's nothing illegal about.
Nothing illegal at all. Nothing. So Islamabad High Court sent it back to the the District Court of Islamabad. Once it was in the District Court of Islamabad, the physical remand was given to the Islamabad police. Now, once the physical remand was given, they say that he was tortured, and after that, he was shifted to PIMS. This fiasco continues. Now, today's order is particularly important. So, today's order was given by.
He's been sent back to PIMS.
He's been sent back to PIMS by Raja Farooq Ali, who's the district judge. Shahbaz Gill was being represented by Chaudhry Faisal, who is the brother of Fawad Chaudhry, former Minister of Information here. And we have on the prosecution side Raja Rizwan Abbasi, very seasoned prosecutor. So two very, very good seasoned lawyers arguing their cases. Nobody disagrees with what the law is doing. There is no question about, even from the defense side, there is no illegality as far as the remand is concerned. That's not something that has been raised. The issue raised has been if he is being tortured and if there is any physical evidence to prove that he is in fact under any sort of a threat if he is given a physical remand with the Islamabad police. Now, Raja Rizwan Abbasi, the prosecutor, clearly stated that if he is given to the police, his health is the trust of the IO who has him, and if anything were to happen to him, that IO's job or IO's criminal cases could open up against him. So, it's a relatively safe process to give it back to him. They, however, say that there has been torture. Raja Farokh Ali, in his case judgment, stated that the fact that he was brought to the court in an ambulance with an oxygen cylinder attached to him is sufficient evidence to show that there is a problem, and therefore he was sent to PIMS. Of course, if somebody's life is in danger, they ought to be sent to PIMS. There is no disagreement about that. However, PIMS has conducted one investigation in which they have said that there was no evidence of any torture. Now the court has once again ordered another one. We expect that this time around there will be more scrutiny of the doctors who are conducting this investigation and the report that they will be submitting to the court tomorrow. So I feel all in all there is a lot of evidence to suggest that the law is looking at it with a lot of care, and this matter is not going to go unheard. I think the bigger problem is the way it is being portrayed to the public.
Okay.
It's being portrayed to the public in a manner as if the courts don't care, the courts have no idea what's happening. The very fact that it went to the High Court and then was sent back to the District Court, and the District Court extended the physical remand. Now this is something that I honestly,
how usual in your opinion is it for cases like this to for remand to be extended?
So it's not about cases like this. So okay, let's look at the legal process for a second, just before we to comment about this case. It is understood in any common law country, and you yourself are a barrister as well, that any judge can make a mistake, and therefore you have the remedy of appeal. Therefore, you have superior courts. If courts and the lower courts were so competent, you would not have high courts, and if high courts were so competent, you would not have supreme courts. That is why you have several levels of appeal. So the first judgment that came out, which was by Judge Adnan, was a very, by the way, in my opinion, a very good judge. But it was said that he decided the case of sending Shahbaz Gill on a judicial remand not on the correct law, and therefore this appeal was made. Now, when this appeal was made, it was sent back, and the lower court was asked to look at only the aspect of physical and judicial remand. Forget about what would happen in the physical remand. That they said was not in the court's ambit, and in their order they had crossed their ambit. Happens all the time. This is remanding back to a lower court is something that I think happens maybe to 30% of the cases that go up to appeal. Demands are so common. So it was remanded back, it was reheard on only the legal point to which the High Court narrowed it down to, based on which they decided, okay, fine, if we were to remove the issue of the length of the physical remand, then physical remand should have been extended in this particular case, and so it was.
Okay, let me come back to you. Safiullah, I want to go to Amir Saab. Amir Saab, keeping the legality aside, how are you looking at this whole episode? I mean, the way that it is being portrayed, the way that it is now, on every screen, it's kind of sensitive to everyone, for everyone, should be at least, to watch also. Overall, how do you look at it?
Well, I think this is very unfortunate, because the optics is going really bad. As Safiullah was saying, it has a legal dimension. Let the law take a course, and also when politics must show some decency.
But when we look at all of this, when it is so public, and that's another side of it, when it's shown on TV screens, of course it has its pros and cons both. But in this case, there's a lot of it's giving it a political angle, it's giving it a sensational angle also. Wouldn't you agree?
This is how PTI does. I mean, PTI's strength is to mobilize and whip up the public sentiments through media symbolism. The media symbolism is important for them. I think the way the crying and all that things, the torture stories, and the way the Gill was portrayed in the media, profiling and all that, this is something, this has very bad impression on the legal process as well, because the influence that coming from political side will also have implication on legal decision making. So this is the problem. I think someone has to take take care.
I will go to Safi and ask him how, Safiullah, and ask him about how legal it is, whether it can be, if showing it on screens like this can be precluded and all of that. But first I want to go to Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh Saab. Ji, Kaisar Saab, your party, how is the PMLN looking at this whole episode? Because certainly, we saw the standoff between the federal government and the Punjab government police also over Shahbaz Gill Saab, over giving custody, and then, as I understand, Rangers were involved. How do you look at it?
MAHRUKH, I always like to join your show because you have diversified topics and we can have detailed discussion on it. Now, this, in my opinion, media is giving unnecessary weightage to this matter. This this is before the courts, and courts they are making their judgments, and you see now simply it is handed over. He is handed over to Islamabad police. Now the matter that whether he was tortured or not, that is the matter to be discussed, and that I think can be argued and discussed in court. And we should not give so much sensation, so much detail. I'm seeing each and every channel is giving a lot of time on it. You see the matters now. Presently, there are various other important topics, like what happened to the small traders when Miftah imposed taxes without having any homework or doing any study.
Let me come back to you.
All
Let's,
our
fair enough.
agriculturists, in my
Fair enough. Let me come back to you. I think there might be a problem with audio. I think there's a problem with Kaisar Saab's audio. Ji, Safiullah, I was talking about whether showing it on screens, this kind of sensitive content, and then of course social media. It's not possible to sort of prevent this kind of content from coming out on social media. It's perhaps faster than the other media, but do you think it's possible to curtail it at all, where it when it's leading to the kind of, I mean, overall I feel like for a person like me even to watch it, I'm sure for everyone else also it's very difficult.
I think the courts can, if they wanted to, try and impose extreme measures of censorship, but that is not in consonance with our constitution. Our constitution does say that there should be freedom of expression. There's a very fine line. So in this particular case, I think the case is sub judice. People should not be commenting on it. It's a very simple thing. People should not try and think pass judgments and verdicts as they do. I think the public of Pakistan have now all become judges and doctors. They are experts on torture mechanisms and torture laws, and we know that this is something that's happening at least all over social media. What do we do about it? There's one way is to ask the FIA to clamp down on all of these people. I don't think the state has the resources to do that, and I don't think it serves national interest either. So the only thing that can happen is for the courts to give judgments that are so wise, so full of intelligence that a person can read them, understand them. The lawyers of political parties like PMLN and People's Party and PTI can read them and try and convince their leaders and make them understand that these judgments are in line with the law and will benefit their own parties in the long run. And so that's the only way this can proceed. I don't agree with the idea of extreme censorship. The only other way would be to shut down Facebook, shut down Twitter. I don't think I would want that.
Right. Let me go to Amrita. Amrita, let's move on and talk about overall. Even if we leave this aside, there are other, in terms of cases. Certainly, PTI is right in the midst of both the Toshakhana case and also the foreign funding case. In terms of where things are headed, in terms of course braving the kind of onslaught that is coming their way, they are quite in the middle of these cases. And how do you look at that political fallout of all of that? We are of course looking at another rally tomorrow. I'll go to Ali Asjad Malli on that also, but what's your take?
Well, I think the way PTI conducted politics for the last 3.5 years was the politics of revenge and the victimization, and all opponent leaders were put behind the bar, almost everyone who opposed them, and the media was gagged, media censorship was there. There are a lot of things that have been invested by PTI politics is now coming back to them as well, because the situation is so, this time there is a public narrative. I mean, the macho man character Imran Khan is coming out with power, with might and all that. So that reflection is also pushing the other political parties.
What's the purpose of this rally? Let me go to Ali Asjad Malli. Malli Saab, can you hear me? Kaisar Saab, in terms of the rally that has been announced by Imran Khan Saab for tomorrow, What do you think, I mean, if the law is taking its course and we are seeing the courts at this time comment on it, PTI of course has recourse to courts, they have representation, all of that. What do you think is the purpose of this rally? Is it to mount pressure? Why is the rally being held in your opinion?
Yes, MAHRUKH, this is not the time to demonstrate and to have more and more rallies. Of course, Imran Khan is bent upon to having more meetings and more rallies. But I feel that at this scenario, it is a conflict between various between the parties, between the political parties, and this is not the proper time. I have already mentioned in many of my programs that this time is not the proper. At present, our economic situation is not this, that we could have political rallies like this. We should sit together. There should be, of course, someone who should convince Imran Khan that this is not going in the interest of the country, in the interest of his own party. He's not taking the rights.
We've had the Prime Minister say again and again to talk about charter of economy. But when, if you talk to the PTI, they say that there's that whole victimization narrative that they're trying to put forward. And they say that they don't want to sit with the government because they're being victimized. So how would you answer that?
Yes, they have already taken stand on this. But I don't feel in a country, in a democratic country, we are not confronting between different countries. We are in the same homeland of Pakistan, different parties. And different parties, if we will not sit together, always in each and every country.
To be fair, the PMLN didn't sit with the PTI on any charter of economy when they were in power.
You see, you are right. I think this is the proper time. You are taking right line. I think we should make ourselves fruitful for the country, the economy. You see what happened now with IMF. We are going to have negotiation and we have some contract. But then again, if we have imposed some restrictions on the import luxurious goods, then we are forced to lift those luxurious band because we are short of revenue. So all these things have to be carefully weighed. It is not a good time. You see, if he has rallies, okay, he has right, he can do it. But I feel he will not be successful in it. Now people have started realizing, but the crux of the matter is economic matters, their savings, their employment. Because I feel when I was 3-4 days ago in my constituency, that people are fed up, they are feeling pinch of this inflation, and so much so that their electric bill, many people came to me that we cannot afford to pay and you should pay, ask me. Similarly, the petrol price is so high. Similarly, what now recently happened is that agriculturists, they are having such...
Those are all measures taken by your government, your party.
No, it's a economy. What was handed over to us by the PTI, it was a miserable position. They made a contract with the IMF in which they agreed 50 rupees levy on petroleum. Instead of levying imposing levy, they otherwise reduced the price of oil. So this was the IMF agreed because there was a contract and it is a sovereign contract between the government and IMF. So they up to now they are not clear. They are having more and more restrictions because they don't believe. They feel that
let me come back to you. Kaisa Sahab, I'll just come back to you. Let me go to Ali Asad Mali. Mali Sahab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Overall, what's happening as far as your rally tomorrow is concerned, the PTI's rally that Imran Khan Sahab has announced, as what is the purpose? Is it to show your power, your power as far as your power with the people is concerned? Is it to demonstrate how much power the PTI has? Certainly it's not, it's for Shahbaz Gill Sahab, but as I understand, law is taking its course. We've also seen him being presented in court, and the debate between whether he's being tortured or not tortured is, keeping that aside, what is the purpose of the rally?
How can we put that aside, miss? I always put you in a difficult position whenever we speak. I'll do that today again, if you allow me at the end.
Gigi, I'm not in a difficult position at all. I'm just trying to understand in terms of the legal side of things, as far as
Let me reply.
the legal.
As soon as I start replying, you.
Gigi, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to put you in a difficult position when you say that that Shahbaz Gill is not being tortured. Can you tell the people of Pakistan that he's not being tortured? You've seen him. I'm a huge fan of yours. You're an upright Pakistani. Can you lie to 22 crore people live right now that Shahbaz Gill is not being tortured? You know what's going on.
Mali Sahab, I'm not saying, please let me correct you. I'm not saying that he is not being tortured. I'm not saying that he is being tortured. I don't know for a fact what's happening. All I'm saying is that what is the purpose of the rally tomorrow as far as the PTI is concerned?
The purpose of the rally is, it's very simple, and I think it's no rocket science. We are going to show our support to Mr. Shahbaz Gill and what is with the barbaric stance which the government has taken against him and what they have done to him. He's been sexually abused. Can you believe this? He's a political activist. He's being sexually abused in the jail, not in the jail, in the police custody. The police say we are doing it. The angels aren't coming down from heavens and abusing him. But this is really bad. This is really bad for everyone. For everyone. Across all parties, it's really bad. Politics has its ups and downs, but this is pathetic. So we are going to show that what is being done is pathetic, it's barbaric, it's undemocratic, and it is sort of Nazism. And
but Mali Sahab, isn't it better to go to courts on this, to let the law take its course and come down hard on the proper authorities, if that's all, if all of that is happening?
Understood. How do we come down on hard on these authorities? Can you tell me? The government is behind this. The Cherry Blossom is behind this. And when Cherry Blossom and the PDM is doing this, how can we in the opposition come down on authority? The courts
okay, let me, Mali Sahab, I'll just come back to you. Let me come back to you. Gee, Safiullah, I also want to go on and move on and talk about the other cases that are also quite in front of us, which is one of them is the Tosha Khana case and the other is of course the foreign funding case. What do you feel as far as overall, as far as the Tosha, as I understand in one of the cases the PTI has refused to present itself. What's the legal standing?
This is what it is, right, Mahrukh? I think we have just seen an example of this just right now. And we are seeing this yet again. So in the Tosha Khana case, Imran Khan was served a notice. Imran Khan responded back saying he's not going to present himself because he's not an MNA. The election commission themselves had to show that he is still an MNA, that he has not formally resigned yet, and that he still has to appear. However, Imran Khan is now saying that he will not. But this goes back to the conversation that you were having just right now with the representative of the PTI. The matter is in court. You asked a very clear question. Why not let the courts decide? They're not happy with that. They do not want the institutions to do their work. They want to continue to hold protests and rallies and talk about things that do not even have evidence as yet. If there is evidence, if the honorable member who just joined us on the phone, if he's so certain that there is evidence, he should go to the court and present it. Why is he holding a massive rally? Why is he not going to the judge who's supposed to decide? Why is he not asking for the formation of a local commission that includes PTI members and doctors who can go and check for themselves? Instead of circulating these things on social media, instead of constantly berating the institutions and then at the same time going to those very institutions and asking for help. Keep in mind that this is a two-way stream that they are playing. They want the courts to give them justice, and at the same time they want to keep berating the courts, keep saying the courts are corrupt, keep saying that we are the only ones who deserve justice and everybody else is wrong. If the court decided that yes, he should be sent on to BIMS, great, courts are honest. If the courts say no, he should be given physical remand, courts are corrupt. If the courts say that no, he should be given judicial remand, great, courts are honest. If the courts say no, the ambit of the physical remand was not fulfilled, courts are corrupt. Like, it's the same judges time and again, that and the PTI narrative on these judges just keeps fluctuating every now and then. It's unbelievable. Like honestly, if I think about it, it almost looks like one of the greatest wonders of the world to keep seeing how quickly the narrative changes on every institution.
Malisa, will you answer that if you're listening?
Can I please answer? Thank you very much.
Gigi, please.
I don't know who this gentleman is, but I would really hope to God that he never faces this situation where he's been sexually abused, and the doctors and everybody who are checking him are not his. They are the government's doctors. They are PDM's doctors. This PDM's police. Today, Imran Khan was not allowed to see Shahbaz Gill. Why not? What are they afraid of? No mobile phone, no camera is allowed inside when they go to see Shahbaz. Shahbaz Gill took off his shirt in the court and showed everybody what he's doing. He told the judge that I can take off my shalwar if you want to.
Let me come back
Isn't
to you.
that
Ji, cases, I also want to talk about the other two cases as far as foreign funding is concerned, as far as Tosha Khana is concerned. I think that what we are looking at this time, what Ali Asjad Mali Saab and overall the debate itself also shows that there is in fact, the kind of polarization that we are seeing at this time, the kind of, the inability to even have a dialogue which can be rational. And, I'm not talking about, I don't want to talk about what the physical situation as far as Shahbaz Gill Saab is. I'm just saying that generally speaking, we are looking at a very polarized society. In this kind of a situation, don't you think it's asking for the impossible when you ask the opposition to sit with you and talk about economic issues? Because clearly, there is, the kind of environment there is, it seems to be a far cry.
So this polarization is mainly because of Imran Khan's attitude. He has never accepted any, as mentioned now, that all the institutions, he has been advocating that we should respect the institutions. Now, what any institution which gives any verdict against him or any opinion against him, he doesn't like it. He doesn't like the opinion of Election Commission. He doesn't like this FIA. He says, I will not reply. He doesn't like the institution of National Assembly. He even doesn't like the major economic power of the world, USA. They said once he says that US has made regime change, and then again now he's making efforts to have good relation. When President Trump was in power, he had very good relation. He went there to meet and then came back and said, as if I have won World Cup. Now, what happened to the same, if the same countries having, in his opinion, making regime change? What happened? He has no arguments. Now, the rallies, what will happen to the rallies? Okay, he can have as many rallies as he likes. It is a democratic right of Mr. Imran Khan. But I tell you frankly that all these policies are being watched closely and people are not liking it. You see, any institution, he said, always advocated that we should respect the institution. Now, army, also you see his members are giving very strong differences with the, and rather, I should say, rebellion against the institution of armed forces. So what will happen if in this scenario, and he doesn't like to have dialogue? We have offered him several times to have a dialogue. If he doesn't have dialogue, what will happen? This is just polarization and conflict. It is not in the interest of the country. Country is for 230 million people of Pakistan. And what is happening? We are just, all our neighboring countries have developed. We, because of this tussle between the political parties since long, we are going down. Our economy is a miserable situation, and Imran Khan must realize that if he has to get popularity, if he has to get people, because people eventually will come to know that this mainly is because of his reasons. What he is doing, the conflict policies, this will not pay, this will not have benefit in the
let
Pakistan.
Let me come back to you. Yes, sir, let me come back to you. we are
Yes.
also seeing, overall, as far as the PTI is concerned, in this kind of environment, what do you expect for the Punjab government and the federal government, the way that, the standoff that we saw between the police, generally also speaking, there is that whole issue as far as change of chief secretary is concerned, as I understand. So there seems to be overall a kind of politics of conflict, which is, kind of expected, because of course we see a party in power in PTI being there and federal government. So overall, what kind of an effect can you expect? It's the largest province with the federal government here. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's very hard situation as far as the economy is concerned. We are in a very bad situation, of course. But as we were listening to the gentleman from PTI, if you go with this attitude, you cannot engage the opposition. This is the time to engage. I mean, the engagement is the most important word here, because Pakistan cannot afford any instability. We are, thanks God, we are now coming out of this instability. We are moving away from default. But then start to try to create the tension, and using the media hype, the social media and all that. This can give you some sort of populism, but populism is not always wise, because you have to take realistic decisions. What has done this government for last 3-4 months? They have taken unpopular decisions, but they have sacrificed their vote in order to ensure that the country doesn't go
Do you
into
think our
default.
people will understand that?
It will take time.
Because we're seeing the dollar, of course,
Yeah.
rupee and dollar situation get better over time.
Yeah.
You think that our people will understand that,
I think it will take
that
time.
these decisions had to be taken?
If this government allows to work for till the time of the next election, I think after 4 or 5 months you will see major difference. The rupee will be, the rupee will get its value. The situation will be improved, the international prices of the oil will go down, and we will also see some sort of economic recovery coming. I think this is how it is going to function, but I think it's a big sacrifice to make for any government to come in a situation when the country was needed it more.
Ji, Safiullah, your opinion on that?
So, sorry, what's the question?
The same, in the sense that, the kind of decisions that are being made again and again, we are seeing, the government say that economically they had to do this, they had to increase prices, and there is a certain stability as far as rupee and dollar situation is concerned now. You think if things continue like this, the electorate, the people will understand what the situation, where they're coming from?
The biggest problem that anyone has, and this is before politics, before ideology, the first problem that anyone would have is, can they feed themselves and can they feed their family? And that is the problem that a lot of Pakistanis have today. And if economic situations improve, people will feel the difference. They will be able to measure that difference in terms of the rotis that go into their stomach.
But
that
is
what the
it
poor people
possible
of
to
Pakistan
have economic
to.
stability exclusive of political stability, in your opinion?
Of course, so that's what the problem is. The fact is that Pakistan has been unable to achieve its economic ideal state. Pakistan has remained far behind in the region as well economically, simply because of instability in the political arena. We have not had any stable governments, and that has taken a toll. Investors don't want to invest in Pakistan, and state institutions keep getting abolished. I read yesterday, for instance, that the CPEC authority was abolished. That's highly problematic. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it is for Chinese investors. I don't know what it was doing. Maybe it was hampering their progress. Maybe it was helping them. We don't know. We know that many state institutions such as the STZA, the BOI right now are defunct because they have not been given chairman. And obviously these are matters that need to be addressed by the government so that the people of Pakistan can start benefiting.
Right. Malisa, the situation overall in terms of political stability, do you think that, the momentum that the PTI talks about, the rallies and all of that, if the situation improves vis-a-vis the economy, do you think that you will still be able to carry forward this kind of wave? Because, if people if things are getting better as far as economy is concerned, stability of rupee against the dollar, all of that, we also are expecting funds from the IMF, from other countries. Do you think that the PTI will be able to ride this wave, so to speak? Mali Saab, can you hear me? I don't think he's with us. Ji, Kaisar Saab, do you think that if things continue like this, is that one of the fears that PTI has, in your opinion?
You see, what is the situation now? It is mainly because of the PTI wrong economic policies and this their misunderstanding. They could not even visualize the economic matters. But the things are not better even today. We would have to do lot of measures. It's not so easy that, and dollar is not the only indicator. You see, when our government came, it was about 190. It went up to 240, and now today is 215 or 16. So in between. And dollar maybe increase. Main situation is inflation and that of the shortage of revenue. We should have our policies to formulate, and if we are going to have this political instability, I tell you, Mahrukh, because I always appreciate that you have various topics and you talk all these details, and in the benefit of the country. I have noticed that you give time to each and every party and person. So, and the topics are in the best interest of the country, so that people come to know what is the actual position. Just the leaders are advocating their own claims, but the things are not very good. And I think all of us, all of our political parties should realize, I mentioned many times before, but your question, I must reply that because of PTI, they don't have that much the caliber to take the country to economic stability. Now our government, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, has done his very best, no doubt in it. But things are not rosier even today, because we are having shortage of revenue, and IMF is giving all the more and more conditionalities to Pakistan. And with these conditionalities, our growth will also be slowed down. And I again feel, in order to develop Pakistan, to have better living standard of our people, we should come together. We should, at least there should be some minimum agenda of economic development. And on these agenda, we can have our own policies. The economic policies may be different to some occasion, but at least there should
like
be
anybody would want to talk about a common agenda at this time. Kaisa Sahab, Safiullah, your comments overall on the situation before we close.
So obviously the situation as it stands seems to be at a standstill, and it's only at a standstill because we once again have the war of egos of individuals and not of institutions. I completely concur that when the debate should be on policies, there's so many issues going on right now within the
How
country.
can we have a debate on policy when we don't have, the PTI doesn't have its people in the parliament?
It doesn't
The
matter,
whole
they can still
politics,
talk
their
about.
whole-
So right now, for instance, just to give an example, tomorrow's rally, instead of being that of an individual who, and I understand that if there has been any torture, any sexual attack of any sort, it's highly condemnable. But the fact is, it's not been determined by any court as yet. It's not been determined by any medical board as yet. It's not been determined or even been clearly stated by any independent authority. So, if leaving aside personal issues, let's look at what an ordinary Pakistani man is facing, and who is going to start talking about those issues. When are we going to start talking about taxes? When are we going to start talking about foreign policies? When are we going to start talking about matters that pertain to the economy, to our society at large? Let's just, for instance, take an example. You know, I just heard that, you know, the gentleman from PTI was very upset about the sexual harassment that as yet stands unproven. And you know, if proven, I fully endorse, you know, maybe even hanging the culprits. But as yet unproven sexual harassment allegation, very emotional about it, the entire PTI. Why were they not similarly emotional when Tayyiba Baloch said that Chairman Nab harassed her and that Imran Khan locked her up? Why could there not be a rally on that issue then? I mean, if all people are agreed on the aspect of torture and sexual harassment being a bad thing, then it should be meted out equally rather than applying it only to people that suit
But
your
overall,
purpose.
there is, Amir Sahab, overall there is, like when you talk about the fact that you don't agree with the government, you talk about the fact that you don't, you know, accept them as a valid entity, which is what the PTI is essentially saying when they say they don't want to sit in parliament, in the federal government. But then they are in government, you know, that itself is a contradiction in terms, no?
Absolutely, you're right.
And
you know, they didn't sit in parliament. They could have, anybody can go out because of the no confidence motion, but you cannot go out of the parliament. That is the right place. There's the right domain where you can influence, where you can come back, you can fight back, and you can, you know, this is how democracy works. if you go out in the street for every bit and piece and trying to
then you're asking for justice as a principle. You're asking for justice on the roads, and are you trying to pressurize institutions? What is the purpose then? You know, okay, solidarity.
So you are undermining the rules
right.
of law. You're undermining rule of law. You're undermining constitution. You're undermining judiciary, because judiciary is taking its course. If you have problems, go and produce the evidence. Say this is the evidence and bring it to the public. If you don't trust in court, if you don't have anything, then just go into the street. Doesn't work.
Right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for being with us, Barrister Safiullah Ghauri, Amir Hussain Saab, Alias Chid Malli, Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh. Thank you for your time. Overall, of course, we provide a platform to all our guests to voice their views, but of course, we don't condone any criticism on any institution. And overall, as far as the situation stands, of course, law should take its course. If there is any kind of harassment, any kind of abuse, of course, once proven, law should take its course, and there are no two opinions on that. As far as the politics of agitation is concerned, certainly overall, our country at this time cannot afford politics of agitation. A country that is finding it difficult to feed its people, its population. We have an overall economic crisis, which is, and an economic default that was looming right in our faces. Things seem to have settled somewhat, but of course, we're not out of the woods yet, which is what the Prime Minister keeps on saying. He keeps on talking about the Charter of Economy. He also talks about having all the parties sit down, but that clearly is not, does not seem to be happening very soon. In the kind of polarized society that we are unfortunately seeing, that is something of concern, which should concern all parties, which should concern all citizens of Pakistan generally. For us to have confidence in our institutions, for us to have confidence in the justice system at this time, to infuse that confidence is important for all political parties. For everyone, for every common man who goes to court, for every common man who suffers, we need that kind of justice to happen. Thank you so much for joining us today on Thursday.